Hi, I am Nirmal Sarkar, and you are listening to the CryptoHub India podcast. We are a group of crypto enthusiasts, and this podcast is nothing but a collection of our Clubhouse live sessions, where we discuss the latest crypto trends from India. Well, this also means you can directly participate on our Clubhouse sessions and become a part of our next episode. Come, join us. Visit cryptohubindia.com to get all our social links. Thank you.
Hey guys, so I've been listening to this and I've been thinking about it. So I have one question. Maybe Karma can answer that. In a scenario where a government agency is handling a cryptocurrency, why does it has to run on a private blockchain? I mean, it does not make sense because blocks are basically computers. So why do you need if something is private and it actually does not need any validation because you are basically controlling it. There's no sense in running it on a blockchain. So why to keep the ledger on blockchain if government is launching any cryptocurrencies? They can just use the more efficient database. That's just senseless to me because it cannot be a cryptocurrency on blockchain. I'm pretty sure if they are even saying to us that it would be on blockchain, I would doubt it would
No,
actually
no,
be
it
run
is
on
it is not
blockchain.
a cryptocurrency. That's why it has a name, dedicated name like central backed currency. So if it is backed by any central authority, so that means it is not a cryptocurrency. But still, they have to use a blockchain. So indirectly, you have a INR. You
But
are
why
using
why
UPI.
do you
Using
have
IMPs.
to use a blockchain?
They need the blockchain. I haven't even searched why they need. There will be some positive side as well to use the blockchain. There are some for corporate, but I don't know about the government how they gonna be help how they it gonna be helping. Sure with that, it may be possible there will be some areas that may gonna benefit the government if they use the blockchain. That's why they are using it and they are going for it. Otherwise, yeah, it is not a cryptocurrency, and it cannot be work as a cryptocurrency because the purpose was to be decentralized. If you're gonna go for cryptocurrency, the first thing comes with the decentralization, not present. And the CBDC actually have a central. The first thing comes with the central backed. Then you cannot compare it with that. Is a different thing. They just don't use the blockchain,
No, the,
but
the real
it will
reason
be
of
fine.
having a blockchain is basically, if you understand, it's a triple entry ledger. Okay, so which was not there earlier in the world. All the accounting in the world has been happening on a double account entry. Double entry ledgers. So triple entry ensures that there is a seal on the transaction, whichever has happened between two parties, and nobody can edit or delete it. So that is the power of having a blockchain technology. In real time, you can just ensure all the transactions cannot be deleted once they have been.
So basically, it's resilience, right? So resilience is existing already in whatever department you want to execute it.
Not really. That's what.
No, Neeraj, like how resiliency is there. I mean, you can deploy a distributed database that would work, but there are scenarios where distributed databases don't lack some properties the blockchain has, right? For example, immutability, right? You can manipulate the data even in a distributed database very easily, right? You just have to change the entry, that's it. But in blockchain, it's technical. You know what is blockchain, right? So every transaction is linked to the previous hash of the previous transaction. So by nature, it is immutable, right? So you get the a very good immutability, right?
But the point of private blockchain is that you have control over it. That means it's mutable, right?
No, no,
And
no. I'm
in
not
order
saying
to
about public or
mutate it,
private.
no, the currency would be private, right? It won't be like you cannot mine it. The government will hand it over to you.
So,
No,
so
you cannot
Nilesh,
mine
I'm
it
not
like.
clear about your question. So, is your question that if the government is coming up with CBDC,
Why
it
why
has to
does
be on
why
private?
does it has to be on a blockchain? That's my question. Why does it has to be on
Because
blockchain?
because
Yeah.
the whole premise is that governments are trying to create a digital currency that can be exchanged on the blockchain for the
This
purposes
is
of
this is
blockchain.
this argument because you want to do it on blockchain. That's why we are doing on blockchain. If that's the reason they are doing
Nilesh,
it, it's stupid.
Nilesh, I'll
No, I
answer
think
that.
it's more
The
like, let's say
current.
you have a DeFi app. Let's say you have a DeFi app on Ethereum network, and you go to the app. That app's gonna return you. I don't know. You're providing some liquidity to it, INR versus I don't know. Just say Ethereum, right? You want to sort of pull in, and it's gonna give you rewards in INR, for example, right? and now you want to exchange that INR to, let's say, cash, because maybe next 10 years everything's not going to be on digital INR. So you need to be able to exchange that. So, but your denomination here is INR. So anything, so if a CBDC based INR you want to use on Ethereum blockchain, somebody's got to mint it and somebody's got to manage the supply of it. And that's what the governments will be in the business of what they do, sort of in the business. I mean, we can argue if they do it good or bad, but they would be in the business of minting and burning it. But then the liquidity providers are going to provide that liquidity on Ethereum network for the
So
INR. So that exchange is not possible unless you have it sort of on the blockchain, right? Otherwise, it's just going to be like a digital currency the way you have today. So like when you have your bank account, it's just a number. It's just a transaction in a certain ledger. Which is just digital, right? It's not going to be any different the way you have today, right?
so you mean to say that when this would be launched, we could trade it on WazirX?
That's right. So you should the goal should be that the CBDC should be tradable on
So we can
WazirX.
do it by INR already, right?
No, no, we don't have a INR.
No.
Dedicate, if you see that, that's just a number they are giving you. Just for example, there is a USDT over there, but the USDT actually a token. It's a token of that tether. But when you trade in INR, you don't have any coin. They just calculate on the basis of INR value. There is no coin or token behind that INR, but on behind that USDT there is a token, you can withdraw it. But like if you have to withdraw INR from wallet to wallet, you cannot do it. In INR you just got two options, either to withdraw it or to, if you want to deposit it, you can deposit through your bank or any gateway. So you're just depositing INR on a wallet, just like you are using phone pay or Paytm wallet to load up your cash on that. But basically, if you have an option of CBDC, I'm not even saying, I'm not even expecting that government will allow us to use it for trade. May gonna be used allow with the DeFi even. May be possible, but I'm not expecting it. But still, if they are gonna do it, it will be different from the current INR pair. If you are right now seeing WazirX, that is the INR pair, it is a INR pair, but you don't have a token of INR right now. So I'm not saying that they're gonna replace it, but I'm just giving a reference that INR is just a number over there. There is no token behind that. But if you have a token for INR, you can actually withdraw it, just like you withdraw USDT from wallet to wallet, from exchange to exchange. You don't have an option for INR over there. So
Yeah, to make it more real, Nilesh, if I may add, let's say from your WazirX INR that you have, you want to transfer that over to me, you can't do that because it's not a token. But the CBDC, if it goes in that direction, it has the ability to make that possible. If it's an ERC20 or whatever token standard we have on any network, you're able to
no,
transfer it
it will
in
be
on a
on a
click of a
private
button.
blockchain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be on a private blockchain first of all, and if then government wish to bridge it, they can bridge it. But I don't think government will gonna create any direct bridge to the crypto market. Maybe in future, possible, but currently for next 2 3 years, I don't think government gonna you can allow us to use that CBDC with crypto market or DeFi market or for even an exchange. If
So,
they
but then
do
that
it, it
begs the
is good.
question:
Uh,
what is the use of creating it on a private blockchain that nobody uses?
I'm still wondering. As I said, I don't know why the government is doing it, but I don't think they're gonna allow it, because for me, like for India, I think Indian government is against the crypto. So I don't think they're gonna allow us to use that crypto, the CBDC in the crypto market. So
okay, Karma. So yeah, let's assume that everything goes well and they do eventually list it like a token on a market, which you can like buy and sell and exchange with other tokens. Let's assume, let's be optimistic about it. But still, then when I send a token to Sundar, maybe the transaction will take place, and instead of miners getting that validation and doing that validation, the government will do that validation. Why does the government need blockchain technology to do that validation? I don't
Like
understand
Nilesh,
why the blockchain is required here, because if you're a private
no,
entity,
if you are,
blockchain is
no,
based.
suppose it, like, suppose as you said that, suppose we are going to get the CBDC option on the wallet, so then you need the blockchain. Like it is not only that I'm gonna withdraw from this to this. Like suppose only Wazir X to Wazir X, I have to I can withdraw it to my wallet as well. There you need the this blockchain. Suppose if you want, you can say trade with CBDC. Suppose you are trading in CBDC, and then you converted all your profit to CBDC. Now you wanna withdraw it, so you can withdraw it to any different account as well, and you cannot do it without CBDC. It can be off chain from between like exchange to exchange, like Coinbase and Binance. Multiple exchanges have it that you can transfer your asset within need to you can say companies like within the same exchange. So you can do it if the company allows, but on chain, if you want to use it any different thing, if you want to use DeFi, then you need the blockchain. That's how you're gonna be interact with the DeFi. If you don't have a blockchain, how you gonna be interacting with the DeFi? So if you want to interact it, if you are assuming that CBDC maybe gonna be replacing the INR option and maybe gonna allow us to interact with the DeFi, then you need the blockchain. So this is the answer.
And
I
Yeah.
think
also,
I think I'm
Karma, like
understanding, Nilesh, your question. Your question is that let's assume it's not even DeFi, it's not even integration to other public blockchains. But let's say if you want to transfer money to Sundar, why do you need a private blockchain? I think that's a question, right?
That's exactly my question
That's
is. If
exactly
it
what the
is
question is.
obfuscated from you, if you can't even see the system, if it is private system, why does it has to be on blockchain?
Yeah, and that's the reason for that is because your account and Sundar's account is not, it has to have some common medium to transfer value. So even if the government creates let's say a CBDC, and then you're saying if they create the back end to allow for that transfer, then think about it. You have your account on some kind of a government system ledger, and Sundar's got to have the same account in the same system somewhere. Only then government can orchestrate that transfer. Like to do the transfer, it's got to be on some kind of a same uh,
Definitely, brother. I understand it has to be on the system, but the definition of a blockchain is that hundreds and thousands of computers running, and basically, it's more of an issue of what do you call it, data duplication, which I don't know why would a private company would do, you know. So you
see,
just have to
Nilesh,
maintain a ledger. Yeah, maybe you want some resiliency in transaction and all, so maybe you can do all classic data backups and whatever is done already in banking sector. So
I
just to
got your
run, yeah.
question, Nilesh. Let me answer it. Like 1 minute, Sundar and you. See, it's more about having a better system in place, right? Your question, I understand. Like, why can't we use a normal database like what we are doing today to store the transaction? Like, why do we need blockchain? That's your question, right? The thing is, blockchain system is more secure against external attacks, right? Right now our banking systems are secure, but they are secured by external security forces, and they are by external gateways, right? Once the hacker gets into the database, he can easily manipulate all the records and he can do anything. Even he can transfer some money to his account and nobody would know about those things, right? But having a blockchain in place, right, it is going to provide that kind of immutability and resiliency within the chain itself. That means it is secure against external attacks. Government can manipulate it because in case, like, even we don't know, like, whether it is going to be a public chain, private chain, or we are not sure yet. Even though it is private, government can manipulate it, but it is it provides some kind of security against external attacks. That is one thing. Second thing, it provides better traceability than the existing databases, right? Since I said, like, the databases right now are easily mutable, I can delete the logs as well, and I can go record, like, the transaction I made. There won't be any trace at all. But in blockchain, every transaction is recorded, and it is immutable. That means, like, government can better keep track of illegal activities with blockchain, right? These are the two advantages, Nilesh.
So, like when I read about it, I was doing my engineering and all. So it works like a linked list, and it is very easy to delete a specific record or a specific list and a specific block in the linked list. So you just have to uh, change the previous pointer and the next pointer, and nobody would know that a transaction was there.
Yeah,
So the
Nilesh,
yeah.
see, that is the that is the core principle of blockchain you are saying. But by the concept of mining, they have made this process more difficult, right? I mean, yeah, I understand you can easily change the pointers, but in reality, it's not like that. When you are going to change a pointer, like if you are going to remove a block and say like a normal algorithm I would take, right? Like where you are removing element n from the linked list in between, and so yeah, that is fine for linked lists, and but the
No, only
process of
my
mining, which
only
is
point is
implemented,
the immutability. It does not apply like you're saying. That's all I want to, because we
yes,
know
by
that,
the
yeah,
process of mining, Nilesh, like through mining or proof of stake, people have made that more difficult and harder, right?
in
Cryptographically, they
public,
have made it harder. Like,
la-
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Even in private, it is harder. Like you have to spend lot. Even the government, right? If they are running 100,000 nodes, for example, sorry, 100,000 is a overkill, right? Like 100 nodes, they have to run the same process everywhere, and it is going to pull lot
So
of powers, right?
it's nothing.
Yeah.
100 is nothing, right?
So
For a
I mean,
government of this
if you're
size,
talking about a
it's nothing.
private network, guys, I mean, if you're talking about a private network, then this whole concept of proof of work and proof of stake literally goes away. You're talking about trusted nodes here who have the ability to validate. In this case, it'll be government, nodes run by the government. So I think we're going in a totally different dimension here, because at the end of the day, immutability of every transaction has to be confirmed, right? Either you do it through proof of work, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, whatever you want to call it, right? In the public blockchain world. In the private blockchain, you've got designated trusted nodes. It doesn't have to be 100 nodes. It may be one or two nodes, three nodes, just for backup, whatever, and depends on the volume of transactions that they have to deal with. So you can scale it sideways, horizontally, vertically, depending upon what your need is. But it's a trusted node. This whole concept of proof of work, proof of stake goes away.
All of the systems that government has that run all these RBI transactions and all, they
Yeah,
all are trusted nodes
they're all trusted nodes.
already. Yeah.
Yes, yes, they are, and that's what we're saying. So if you're talking about and that's what my point is. If you're talking about a CBDC currency that has to be on a government's private network, I mean, they're free to do whatever they want to do with that. But at the end of the day, there's not going to be any demand for that currency. The only use case then you're driving is Nilesh trying to transfer something to Sundar, or maybe Nilesh trying to transfer something to some company that has some application that is running on that private network, that is run by the government. So but that is very limiting, and whatever would be the demand for CBDC, so be it. But the bulk of the transaction in DeFi and all those things, and all the good things that we're talking about, governments just would not have any ability to influence or exert any influence at all in those areas, right? Plus, I mean, there wouldn't be any demand for INR CBD. It'll just be limited demand of some of these use cases we chatted about.
Yeah,
But
but
to
it is
your
going to
point,
be better
do they
than
need to have a
existing
blockchain?
blockchains.
To your point, do they need to have a blockchain, or do they just want to have a bunch of servers directly maintaining the ledger? Sure, like they're free to do that. Because in this case, on a private network, government is like in that trusted role. You're not having, you don't. It doesn't have to be blockchain. You're right. They can just run a server. But then that's not their business. That's not what their expertise in. And I'd be really surprised if governments try to do that, because that doesn't make any sense at all. Why would they try to do that?
Exactly.
But if the government is not up to date with the latest technologies, then it cannot protect. There's a national security issue there. So every possible technology the government should be aware of in depth. So they would try to create that and try to experiment with that and get to know the knowledge behind it.
That's
But definitely, they will use it for the government schemes. Basically, it gives a transparency. They don't need banks as a middleman. If you see, even the money that originates from tax money and the budget money that needs to go to a particular individual in a country, say, scheme is being offered. So how do they ensure or track that? In the current scenario, they don't know. Even if you take some road contracts, or even if you take some municipal contracts that are going through, there is no transparency there. The middlemen take away or eat away the money. Or even if there are certain schemes where the individual needs to benefit, say, a poor man's home, or he's being given some money, the traceability factor is high in using blockchain. Basically, it is immutable. That is the reason that government
well.
would
So
want to
so
go
so,
for
so
this.
on that, Sundar, I have to say is like it's the problem is not really where the money goes there. The problem is really where the money ends up.
Yeah, where the money ends up.
So
Yeah, right.
exactly, right. And I don't know whether this system would mean at the end of the day can go that far that entire countries on some kind of a private network, and let's say government says you allocate I don't know, like $10,000 for a certain initiative. Then this $10,000 gets transferred to some department's account, and then from that department's account it goes to I don't know, a construction company's account on the same network, and then that construction company has, let's say, 20 suppliers, and all of those accounts are on the same network, and then you're able to see where the money went. Sure, I mean, it has gone to, let's say, 40 odd suppliers. That 10,000 has broken down to those 40 people, and then there are cash withdrawals, or like where do they kind of route those funds, and all of those people are also on the same network, right? And then at some point the money is gonna like get converted to work. Somebody's getting paid, and all of them are also on the same network. I mean, yeah, I think I know where you're going with that, but if that's the vision and they can reach that point, that'll be amazing. But then in that case, the role of the government has transformed into the role of a bank, so to speak, right? A big bank
Absolutely.
that has got all the accounts of all its citizens, like one bank. You're talking about this concept of one bank in that case, right?
That's true. That's true. The innovation has to go that way. The dependency of the countries on all the private banks. I mean, if you see the kind of financial scams that have happened, over the past, since the fiat currency came into existence, it's been more of bank scams, and not a single person is being jailed or going to prison, but only they're fining them and letting go. It's like a slap on the wrist and letting them go. Why do we need banks? In that case, if that needs to go, then it needs to go. We don't need middlemen here.
Yeah,
So yeah, probably.
but you're arguing for the concept of having a central bank being the retail bank,
Yeah, that's what
right?
how, because
I mean,
we are actually having limited to the every country is limited to the national identity. If we take a if we are open to the if we are broad minded to become world citizens, I would definitely nobody needs central bank, and Bitcoin is enough. It's a single store of value, sound money, and we can take it as a cryptocurrency for the whole world. And I'll vouch for that anytime, if we want to become world citizens. But we are now the highest level of identity, person of any country has chosen is, we are limited to nations. So this is what Bitcoin is trying to
no, but
create,
so
if
so
you
so
see
this
the
is where
bigger
you lose me.
facts.
Actually, I think we were going in the direction of central banks, like being the custodian of how much money supply is created and destroyed. Central banks, right? I mean, that was the, I think, chain of thought. But I think that is totally separate from this ideological view of Bitcoin becoming the world currency. I think I don't subscribe to that thought process. So I'd stay with the first part that we chatted, but not, in support of Bitcoin. I mean, and I think I made my point clear. My at least thinking as to it's just not stable enough. It's highly inflationary. It doesn't hold the value. You can buy something today for, let's say, let's say if somebody pays you point whatever bit, let's say 1 Bitcoin for something, you don't know what's going to be worth tomorrow, right? It's just not stable enough for anything to be currency. The basic characteristic of anything, it has to be stable, right? I mean, I understand. We
Nations
may talk about
nations
printing.
did not come to the fiat currencies just like that. In back old days, we had gold. Gold was the sound money, and it was being treated as a currency. There was a lot of volatility in gold when gold was trying to capture itself to become the sound money of the planet. It went through a lot of volatilities. Yeah, we are ready.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
it failed,
in
right?
this 10 in
And
this
the
just
world has
decade, we're
given.
still volatile, and volatility is part of the thing. Once we make everyone understand the real power of having, the humans have created something which is a perfect money, or a sound money almost, which can replace gold standard. That's the understanding people should come to when you see or visualize Bitcoin. I recommend people going through this Bitcoin standard. There's a book by Saifedean Ammous.
No,
I
you made a
recommend people.
great point. You made a great point. Gold, and the what happened to the gold standard? It's gone.
That's gone
It couldn't
because
survive. It's been
anything that
40
is
years, 50
physical,
years.
anything physical in nature can be confiscated by
No,
humans,
no, it
can be
wasn't. The problem
confiscated
was
by
not
governments.
physical. The problem was not physical. The problem was how things were quantified to the gold standard, and then the gold had the supply and demand problems, and obviously its value was not constant. So, and that's why the gold standard went, right. I mean, if you look into the history of why all the companies, so it was part of the evolution. So gold standard came in when anything before that was not good enough. Sure, gold standard worked till a certain point when the economy was not so complex, world trade was not such a big deal. Every company could just keep bars of gold in their central reserve and kind of mint money according to it, regulate the supply, right, tying to gold. But then gold became started rising in value, gold's demand, like, so it just fell apart. And that's when, like I don't even know if there's any country in the world that's left on the gold standard. So there's a reason why gold did not work as a standard. And Bitcoin, being the gold standard, definitely doesn't fit the case. We're not going to go back and do what didn't work 50 years ago, right?
It is definitely not gold standard. It's better than that. That's what I would say. It is not confiscatable by governments. It's basically what US did with the European gold that was given to them to custody while Europe was in World War One and Two. The Americans they did not return it, and they just told to use US currency as the reserve currency for the world. They pushed that idea onto that's what Bretton Woods in 1933 created, and that's when the gold standard. There is a paper currency that needs to be used instead of and with the gold backing. And what eventually did that is U.S. started spending. It wanted to retain its power to be a reserve currency. It started spending money on unlimited money on military. Military spending was high. That's how they started, doing all the wars that we have seen: the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and I know they've been doing wars even till date, on Afghanistan, Iraq, and whatever you name it. They're just printing money out of thin air, and they themselves become a debt nation, and their debts override their earnings every year. And even today, the U.S. military audit is impossible. They've been trying to audit their military, and till date they couldn't audit. That's the problem. The government doesn't know where to stop the spending. They just printed. If you heard, they printed 40% of the entire money that have been printed since the U.S. currency came into origin and during this pandemic. 40% of the money so far printed. So government has a spending problem. They don't know how to control or limit their spending. So
But I
this
mean,
way the
all that is
limited.
good. Sundar, I just have a point. Like and I, let's just agree disagree. The gold standard was given away for a certain. The main reason
It
was
was.
really, you can't control the money supply of an economic of the economic cycles that are growing and contracting through a certain benchmark standard. That's one. And number two, gold itself was highly volatile for any country to really, tie any value to that. And that's why it was given away. This is just an economic discussion, I think, at this point. But yeah, I mean, sure. And
That's
I mean,
really
there are
nice, actually,
arguments.
Neo, to understand what really happened. This President Nixon in 1971 decided to give away because, I told you, the US had a spending problem. The government was overspending than the amount of gold they had. It was they was funding the military basically, which was not the reason a country should be bothered about going around doing wars on other nations to interfere. They had spending problem even with $11 billion gold reserve. The outstanding amount of spending that the government was doing was $25 billion at that time. And when suddenly the France asked for them gold back, Nixon removed the gold pegged standard, and he said, from now on treat a fiat as the ultimate sound money, fiat currency or US dollar. And he pushed it. And no country could argue with that, and they just gave it away, by force, not by voluntary agreement. They had to give it away by force. That is how it is. And there is another book called Fiat Standard, also written by the same guy, Saifuddin Ahmad. So maybe these books will give a little clarity on how
S-
the
Sundar,
gold standard was forcibly removed by US, and that's how all the countries agreed to also get out of gold
Well,
standard.
India was at the verge
So
of
this
bankruptcy
basically
in
says that there is a
1992 because of
human
gold standard.
intervention there, but Bitcoin doesn't have human intervention here. The
No,
government
but
intervention
hang on,
very well.
Sundar. Like let's just so they're all good arguments, right? India was at the verge of bankruptcy in 1992 because of gold standard. They had to mortgage their gold. They found a way to kind of get out of that situation, and then India went on the path of changing their monetary policy, the way they kind of do the fiat currency, the manage the money supply, and obviously the rest is history. Everybody knows what happened after 1992: rapid
I would
industrialization,
basically,
privatization, getting rid of gold standard, and all of those things have happened since then.
no,
And look
basically I would
where India has
disagree a
come
little
from
bit.
that
If
point
you
till
see
this
the
point.
clarity, India was not manufacturing, was not a manufacturing hub then. We tried to import, we just liberalized and opened the country to foreign direct investment. That's what happened in 92. We didn't really start manufacturing things like what China did. Now, still date, we are still asking, trying to create a make in India approach right now. We are yet to manufacture big industries, that can provide huge economic growth to this nation. We were
So,
not
well,
doing
those
that.
are separate
And we were.
problems. But I'm just going back to that gold standard problem. Like India was in debt, was days away from not being able to meet its debt obligations, and gold standard was in effect in India at that point. And I'd say from 1992 till now, India has done really well after abandoning the gold standard.
So
So we
Sundar,
can't go
just
back
for
to the Bitcoin standard. Like, I mean, it's going from one gold standard to another gold standard of some kind, right? And
so
that's like
let
100, like, I don't know, 70, 80 years ago, right?
So let me put your points valid. Let me put it in another way. Maybe Sundar will understand. Like, just imagine, like you know that there is a limited amount of bitcoins would be our mind. So what if a country like USA or something get too much wealthy? Nobody can be wealthy again because they have like 70-80% of anything reserve of Bitcoin or something. No country will able to compete with it or print its own money or something like that because they will have all the bitcoins. So if you like have this kind of supply that is like gold, and once the first mover is taken over all the gold and majority of the supply and all, no other country can never compete with it and things like that, which I think is a valid option, very valid reason to avoid bitcoin also, I think. What do you think about that?
I think it'll redistribute over a period of time, because if we start creating a working economy, Bitcoin will move from one country to another. Like, if we have manufacturing, they want to buy something out here. And, the 21 million concept is, I'll explain that, each Bitcoin, if we say 1 rupee is made of hundreds, 100 paisa, a single Bitcoin is made of 100 million Satoshis. So basically 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis are possible, and the world population today stands at 7.9 billion. So it's that's way big amount of
But
satoshis.
you know that already the top 0.1% holds the majority of wealth in whole world, right? So it is already distributed like that. So it's not far from reach to think about bitcoins also in this way. Or even it can be divided. Like you can divide pesas also. Just theoretically, you can divide pesas, and I will say that just have half of pesa, but it does not has any value to it and things like that. So I don't think like maybe it's the other coins that are giving away like 10% or something, their algorithmic like that, their supply will be continuous. Maybe that those are the solutions, but still I don't, in these all 10-12 years of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies emergence, no real business is accepting it. I cannot to actually, but the point of currency is to purchase and sell goods. I cannot purchase anything from Bitcoin. So I don't know. It does not sound like it's
That's right. Now I'm
yeah.
saying, Bitcoin standard means it's only sound money. It is not currency. It cannot be currency yet, because people still have to accept it as a sound money across. They have to understand the Bitcoin, in a much better way. Right now, we can retain the national identities. We can have the currencies which are going, going well with the countries, like whatever respective currencies are there. Just, make Bitcoin a sound money. Make Bitcoin a sound money, and backed by that, and probably, that's how
Just by
it
Sundar,
should
just
happen.
by being that Bitcoin is limited in supply, totally breaks all the logic that it's a currency. Like the currency has to be tied to some kind of your economic expansion and contraction, the GDP. Even if you're talking about a global level GDP, that okay, you gotta have a global currency, it has to tie back to supply and demand of money. At the same time, it has to be pegged to a certain value. Like you value Bitcoin in USD. There is no inherent value of Bitcoin as such. You value it in USD. You say it's forty
That's
thousand
very
dollars. It's worth $60,000. There is
That's a very
nothing
good
like there's
question. Yeah,
nothing like
that's how we are perceiving it right now today. But if you see, a Bitcoin is one Bitcoin is Bitcoin, just like I say, one ounce of gold is 1 ounce of gold. So that Bitcoin has that all the qualities that gold has, and even much more than that. So that is what I'm saying. It is sound money on itself. It's a digital commodity. It's a commodity. It doesn't need anybody or anything to back it. It's already a commodity on
Wait,
its own,
that's a
like
paper
gold.
discussion, Sundar. That's a Bitcoin paper discussion, the white paper and the yellow paper. But that's not what's like. If we argue on a little bit more detail, I think that then at least I can understand it a little bit better. But at the end of the day, if it's not stable, how can it be the currency? Becomes the challenging
Yeah,
part.
you're right. It doesn't need to be currency now at all. It doesn't need it. It will take a one generation more, or maybe a couple of generations before it will become even a currency. But right now, if it's treated as sound money, that would be great. That's all. It stands right now because there is a lot of volatility, as you're saying. because of people still yet to understand all the nuances and qualities of the Bitcoin.
No, but there is a
So there's
reason
a
why
lot
we
of
moved away
education.
from gold standard. If we just go by history and what, so if so Bitcoin is considered to be digital gold. Do you agree or disagree with that part?
That's how we are saying it's basically property. It's
It's a
commodity
property.
or
It has a
property.
gold based
It's,
property, right? Limited supply,
yeah.
and it's going to appreciate in value over the time and all that stuff. So fair points. All of those points are good, but that's a property of a commodity. It's not a property of a currency. And the proof of that is, if you look back in the history, there's a reason why people stopped trading in gold. First of all, we could have used gold as a barter standard. Sure, we can argue it was hard to move and whatever, so it could not have been moved. Sure, good enough. That's why people came in with the printed currency that was then tied to the gold standard so that it can easily be exchangeable. Sure, it was still not digitally being, it was not easy to exchange it digitally, but you were able to trade the value using fiat money that was tied back to the gold standard. Gold was not easy to move, transfer, that's why the money came in. But then we know what happened. Eventually, we had to disconnect the money supply from the gold standard because the gold standard was not able to keep up with the increasing and decreasing money supply, demand of money supply that the economies need. You've got GDP cycles that are expanding or contracting. You've got economic cycles. You've got economic crisis. Gold standard was not able to keep up with that. You talked about wars. Gold standard could not keep up with the money supply that's needed to support all of that stuff. That's why it had to be disconnected. And that's exactly what happened. And fiat currencies went on their own way to then starting to regulate the economies of every currency. So when I listen to this Bitcoin nonsense, when back in the day Bitcoin was created, that it's going to replace like the money, and it's the new money or crypto like currency, that to me it just is out of ignorance. I totally understand being a gold standard. I fully support of it. Great to invest in. I'm all for that. But it's an asset class. It's a commodity, not a currency. It doesn't have the properties of currency. It has proven against, like, if you look at the history, being a gold standard, being mapped to a gold standard, it failed miserably. We have the proof in the history.
Okay, now what really happened when you say, couldn't take control of GDP, but we forgot to understand that the economics, what the Keynesian economics as they call, says that there's abundance of resources available on the planet. There's a blind spot there which the economics doesn't take into account, that the any kind of economic growth that has happened treats all the there is abundance, there's unlimited supply of resources on the planet. That's really absurd. When economic is treating like that, now we are going on a hyper utilization of debt money, basically creating debt for infinite amount of time, which is absurd, because that's how the problems of environmental disaster, man-made pollution and economic disaster, deforestations is happening, because the economic treats those as externalities, and we are going on damaging our environment, treating that way. So we have to hold certain projects accountable to sustainability practices, and nobody took care of that part, because we blindly want to support and supply funding to all kinds of projects that come up without doing a due diligence of it's being recycled. So that's where this control of having a limited currency comes into play. It'll hold the governments and the corporate banks accountable to not just fund everything and everything on the planet, say treating there is unlimited supply of resources, and
But that currency is not
abusing
holding the
the
value. That currency has unlimited inflation. It's an inflationary currency.
that's right. That's what the fiat currency is. Basically, it's inflationary currency. There is
So
no
then
control
what is
on
the
it.
problem Bitcoin solving?
That's why we need a limited, value of sound money to back it. That you don't go beyond. So we need a
But you're
deflationary
contradicting your
asset,
own
which
point. Sundar, you're contradicting your own point. I agree. Fiat currency is inflationary. Is Bitcoin not inflationary?
no, it's deflationary. It's deflationary. Did you see what happened when the economic, during the pandemic, the price of Bitcoin went high? It went skyrocketed because it's deflationary. All the people can pull back on their money and hold it in Bitcoin, and that's where its prices goes up, and so that the essential commodities on the planet don't skyrocket.
Yeah, but the
Those
moment
don't,
the demands,
they
but the
won't make
moment
the
the
brunt.
demand's going to rise for Bitcoin, you're going to see that it's rising in value. But it's rising in value against the dollar. I think it's a very fundamental discussion,
No,
Sundar.
I would say, the rise in value in dollar is only what the crypto exchanges have created in the minds of people. Bitcoin doesn't need crypto exchanges to be proven as, a commodity. It doesn't even need a crypto exchange. It doesn't even need to be hosted on a crypto. I
But
don't
then
know.
you
The
know,
crypto
let me step
exchanges
back. So
just
what do you
used
want
it
to
and
do? So
dragged
let
it
me
into
ask
their
you. There are
network.
21 million bitcoins. Let's say all are mined and we are done. 21 million bitcoins, right? So
Yeah.
how now how do you deal with that in an expansive and a contracting like a economic cycle? What are the implications to that? Let's say you're doing everything in Bitcoin. Now what's happening in that? What's the correlation?
So basically, the funding will happen with, if you understand the fundamentals of the Bitcoin, you will not easily give up on that. It's like you are asking my gold to fund your company. Now I'll be very, very careful about how I give away my gold, which is always deflationary, and its price will keep going, increasing from generation to generation. That's how it should have been going. But the bank started controlling the gold price. If you know, the JP Morgan got fined for manipulating the metals. The precious metals market in between 2010 and 2020. They got fined for $60 million because that's how humans are. We cannot be trusted. We cannot depend on human
But
beings
then what
to
does that has to do with the
retain value.
Bitcoin? Like all of
Yeah,
this is
Bitcoin doesn't give that opportunity to a human being. It is uncontrolled by humans. It cannot be controlled by
What
humans.
Neo is
And
saying, I
treating
guess, is once a person is rich, he will stay rich ever in the terms of bitcoins.
you will be very careful to give away. We are trying to ruin the planet here. If we behave in a responsible way and hand over our bitcoins only to people who are creating sustainable projects, that's where the things is. Now we are funding left and right. Whoever can lobby a politician to passes the bill to give away his project or approve his projects. Blindly. Why is the corruption and so much of nonsense going around in the planet right now? We are abusing the planet basically. So now easily people, when you have a sound money which is always deflationary and its prices keeps increasing over generations, so people will again think, why should I give away my Bitcoin to this project, or why should I start my
But the
own
thing
company?
is, once you're rich. No other person will have a chance to become rich like you, because you are the first mover, or your family was rich in Bitcoin. Now you're always going to be rich, because it's just like in Age of Kings, they had a lot of treasures and gold, and this nobody can compete.
But it is
Impossible.
distributed across the planet. Actually, it's not held by one single person in one single country. The opportunity is still there for other countries to even mining.
For you
The
and
mining of
me,
Bitcoin can go up to 2140 actually.
for you and
That's
me,
what.
it's possible, but there are so many poor countries who don't even have fiat currencies. People living in Africa and all, they don't even have access to that. They won't ever catch up. That's the fact.
Absolutely. You know what has happened? It is solving the problem of actually even this remittances organizations which have stopped fund, helping out people. Shutdown of banks in areas like which are economically inflated, like Venezuela, Lebanon. They still have to feed their families and they have to maintain their standard of living, right? And but they are suffering for no reason because the governments screwed up their economies. So even if you take the example of Afghanistan, the Western Union stopped funding the allowing remittances. Now at this time, this crypto, the Bitcoin is trying can save those people actually. For no wrongdoings, those citizens are suffering at some point. Even the African nations have started using cryptos, Bitcoin heavily now. That's why Jack Dorsey has quit Twitter and he's fully
African nations,
into.
maybe 1% or 0.01% of people are actually might be using them. Not the people in need of the reform is using them.
No,
But
even today,
anyways,
there are a
yeah,
lot of nations where the banks have not entered the remotest parts of the countries.
and
They
they're
don't have
using bitcoins.
any way to earn interest on their currency. They're living like on a regular survival basis. They cannot store a value. They don't have a store of value. It's not giving the
Bitcoin
underprivileged
saving.
people an opportunity to save money long term and retire in a dignified way. Actually,
Okay.
there are a lot of
Uh,
countries living like that.
so I want to ask you two more things, apart from this topic. So my first concern, apart from this concern, is I don't want everybody to know my assets. So when I'm going to move with somebody, when I will transfer him the bitcoins, he will know my address, wallet address, and then he can just get my history, where I paid, what I paid, and what my transaction history is, and how much amount of bitcoin I have in my bank, in my wallet. This is invasion to my privacy. I would not ever want a lobby boy or somebody to just look into my accounts and all. And Bitcoin, you know that it's all public. So how would that be dealt with? And what about the transactions? Because it is very expensive to transact, and it takes a lot of time for a transaction to.
It is not expensive to transact. 100% it is not expensive. You can move $1 billion. There was a transaction of $1 billion move on Bitcoin with just 10 cents of charge on the transaction. It happened, and and your other question, like regarding the transparency, there are other ways. If you do peer-to-peer payments without going through the crypto exchange route, there is still anonymity there. You can still retain your anonymity. You don't have to get all your coins in a KYC fashion. You can get non-KYC coins too. So that is another big topic that is possible.
One question from my side. So as you said, like only finite bitcoins will be there. A lot of most of the bitcoins, almost 90% are already mined, and I think most of it is holded by big rich rich people. So very small amount, almost like 2 to 5% of is available with the small guys. So how do you see in the future, like this is flowed to other people around?
Yeah, basically, maybe your question is right for in perspective of India. Basically, we are late. Maybe I'm not sure if I'm speaking right, but there are a lot of people. We do not know it. Once the Bitcoin came, I really know some people who started mining Bitcoins in 2014 or 13. Also, some people bought Bitcoins and kept with them. So we don't know the exact figures of how many people do not know, but yeah, to the extent that it has a worldwide reach. It is not in the hands of few rich people. We are still allowing to be held by them. Even if you start like purchasing Bitcoin on a daily basis for few hundred rupees or 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees worth, and just holding it for long term, you will see. Don't have to worry about volatility in the short term, but you should think about what your returns will be five plus years. Then
Yeah,
that way
that is
you will see, at least you will have something with you that will hold. That's how you understand the fundamentals. Now I said, who is going to fight for this corruption at the top level, where it's impossible to stop somebody to lobby and abuse the resources on the planet right
I'm
now.
with you on
The
this.
kind of
I'm with
economy
you on
that we
this.
have and the kind of political cloud that we have lobbying going around, a single individual cannot do so. Whoever, it's basically a nature's way of also allowing you to naturally, the smartest people who understand that we are taking the control back from greedy corporates or greedy governments, and then we're trying to create a better future for people. So if some
Yeah,
people
which is
don't get
where I
it,
have a
they
question.
don't get
So,
it. It's a natural
s-
way. We
Here
cannot.
the survival of the fittest works.
so
Like, just a second, Nilesh. I'll just complete and give it. So my point is here the same thing. The problem is just shifting from one pyramid to another pyramid. Actually, that's where I have a question. See, I completely agree that Bitcoin has all these like benefits that you mentioned. I fully agree to that point. But now the pyramid is shifting from like fiat now to let's say Bitcoin, and also all the top guys are already sitting there. So now the same thing will happen there also. How can we like make sure that it doesn't repeat now?
See, at the end of the day, nobody can. I would say the principles behind the Bitcoin is such that right now the people who are holding it, especially if you listen to what Michael Saylor speaks about, if you create a community of people where we understand that sustainable practices are an essential part of saving this planet, from going to wars or preventing world wars anymore, because we are so much high time preference people right now that everybody is behind creating, using up the resources on the planet. So it will bring some kind of accountability. It's only a hope that we don't destroy the humanity on by ourselves, but it will delay that process. That's all I can say, because responsible people will be holding those bitcoins in creating certain economies in the world which is which are going to create a sustainable places to live. But we cannot say that the North Koreans will not do what they want to do, or China will do what they want to do. Nobody can predict what they will do. But at least we'll be some responsible people will should be examples or role models to show them that you can live the world live in a better way with a better economic space. That's all. We can only be role model.
I think you know about the environmental impact that is being done by mining Bitcoin.
Oh, that's a big topic, Nilesh.
Not
If you
surprised.
see, that is not the reason. It is
I know,
less
I
than
know.
one percent. It is.
People give the reason that they run on renewable source of energy, but the argument is that those renewable sources of energy could have been used for other things for which the fossil fuels are used. So energy is energy at the end of the day, right?
Nilesh, that's exactly my point. when we say blindly that some other people, some other thing, that's the question. If the governments and corporates were so responsible, why is the planet so abused right now? That how it looks and so much corrupted right now. You think the current structure is right, but that is one thing. And if you see the energy, if you go through Michael Saylor's some YouTube videos where he talks specifically about the energy consumption, it is using less than 1% of what the entire planet is consuming. It is nothing compared to the vehicular pollution, nothing compared to industrial and mining pollution. It doesn't beat
The
it.
worst
Those
part
are
is
1,000, 10,000 times more polluting the planet than. All these practices can be stopped. Considering that if an individual is being handed a Bitcoin whose value can keep rising on a regular basis, then people will want to ease down and look for sustainable practices than just going around high time preference, doing whatever projects they can take up to abuse the earth. That's all.
So Sundar, let me
So
ask you a question. Why not Ethereum or
Ethereum,
why not Solana?
yeah, all the altcoins have owners and a bunch of VCs who got started with pre-sale launches that they got in with minimum entry points, and then before and after that they got ICOs launched, and these are like certain few privileged peoples are holding this projects in their hands, and these people can themselves shut down the operation, or they can be forced to shut down by the government themselves. It's like other companies. These are equities basically. They cannot sustain. They cannot. There is no kill switch for Bitcoin, but there is kill switch for all the altcoins. That's all I can say.
So what do you think about the taxes? If the government or any agency is not taking the taxes, who will build your roads? Who will build supply to your home for the electricity, water supply, the pumps, the everything that we take granted for?
No,
Who
those
will
are
do that?
basic necessities of humans. We are going to spend money for the basic necessities,
Now,
no
if
matter
you're
what.
if you're if
So
you're
that
transaction if you're going to transaction in Bitcoin, there is no tax, right? So if you're not paying for the services that being offered by the governments, I think government has a bad repo, but we just forget how important government is because just remove the police for 2 days and the
no
situation would
taxes
be
will
haywire.
remain,
Yeah.
Nilesh. Nobody's telling taxes will go away. Governments are there
If
to
the
taxes.
transaction is in Bitcoin, how the taxes will be paid in INR? That's what you're saying?
Well, the Bitcoin white paper doesn't has a provision for taxes, Sundar.
Okay, that's where I said, right now, if we are retaining whatever the process that we are doing, use Bitcoin standard, as a replace the position, give it the position of gold right now, and let the currencies continue
No,
how
but
they
then the
are.
gold standard we know
But if
had
you build
proven had disproved itself like 50, 60 years ago.
again, Neo, maybe you should. There is a very big. I would say, sorry, the very good YouTube video where Michael Saylor debates with this guy called Frank Justra, who is the owner of gold mines, where they have a debate. It's about 45 minutes to 1 hour debate on YouTube. I think that will give you a huge clarity. I cannot. I am not able to recall everything that he speaks. He speaks in a very, very economic and technological way. How Bitcoin is better than gold.
No, I mean I know
That's one.
Sailor has an agenda to shill Bitcoin,
Yeah.
like in every
So
forum.
probably
So I
that'll
mean
give an idea,
that's
but I
given. Like
cannot recollect everything.
yeah, so Sailor is a shiller of Bitcoin, right? So I mean that's given, right? So point being, I'm not going to go by Sailor's opinion. I'm going to go by somebody like some folks or with some deep research who have done some assessment, tying it back to properties of Bitcoin to really the economy and the implications. Like I haven't heard any economist come out like of reputable background come out publish a paper and the paper has been peer reviewed by his peers across the world. Like that's how papers get published, right? So if let's say if there's a case of Bitcoin becoming the global currency, somebody should have come forward to write a paper, and that paper gets peer reviewed by other PhD level economics across the world, just the way every economic paper gets reviewed, and then it becomes public, right? But why doesn't anybody has done this so far?
Neo, if you see all the major companies or organizations have been launched by CEOs who are college dropouts. Now there is a reason why we are allowing why are we putting these economists on pedestal actually. There's no reason to put them, and we have seen where they have not argued on all the abuse that's happening of resources on the planet till date. They keep themselves silent. They're not even visible in the arena. They're seeing what is happening to the world, but they still keep silent. So we cannot depend on the kind of economics that they have created. So they don't really understand
No,
that.
no,
So
sorry, so sorry.
we
I'm
have to.
talking about companies.
I
I'm
mean,
not
we
talking
have
about
to
all of that.
see.
I'm
When
talking
we
about
see
the
Sailor
economy.
and the kinds of Elon Musk and Sailor, these people have lived the life of, they started companies, they've gone through the problems, they've suffered through the growing up, they've been through the pain. But these economists are just paper holders or degree holders who are sitting in colleges, schooling, and giving lectures to people. These people, have they really worked hard? Have they started a company? Have they gone through all the cycles of pains of economic cycles? No, they just
Oh,
push out papers
I'm
and
sorry. I think
have
then
maybe clear results.
I'm sorry. Then I think
I
I
don't
think
think
then
the pain. It's like the guy who has been on the real field and experienced what happens. Only they are qualified to speak about and creating the economics. We've given the PhD guys too much leverage on all this, putting them on top of head. I don't think they deserve that crown, basically.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think, it's just like, I mean, I have a different viewpoint here, but I guess, we can agree to disagree. Like the world that we see around us, I mean, it's primarily being built by, like, obviously a lot of entrepreneurs who have driven out the use cases, but the fundamental technologies and even the fundamental ideas, everything fundamental to that has been, pushed through our universities, through our educators, and through our PhD holders. Even these big companies that you're referring to, they rely on fundamental technologists and PhD holders who are driving the fundamental technology. Every university, every big company in US and Canada has tie-ups with the big universities where all the research happens. Even the internet that you see was invented in partnership between DARPA and universities. Facebook stood out in the university. So I
No,
wouldn't.
I totally agree with
So
the.
I
I
would
agree with some
like
pointers
go.
with the scientific community, the people from the engineering background or the science background, but definitely I will disagree with the economics PhDs. Okay, because these guys have not done anything great. I mean, really, they have to realize how they have created this narrative that there is unlimited or abundance amount of resources on the planet that can be abused and to kill all the species on the planet. They don't really have not linked the biological aspect. They have not linked. There is a dependency. There's a food chain that goes on in a planet. There is a dependency why certain carnivores are less in number and certain herbivores are in. There's a balance there. The food chain pyramid has been reversed. With the population of humans has gone few billions in less than 100 years, which never happened in the history of humanity. It took only 150 years to go from 1.3 billion in 1920s to 7.9 billion in 2021 right now. That is huge, man. That is,
I mean,
you
all
are
of this has
suffocating the
nothing to do
planet.
with Bitcoin. All of this has nothing to
It
do with
is all of
Bitcoin.
this thing has to do with the drawbacks of fiat currency, which came out,
No.
where they blindly printed money to offer the opportunities to every Tom, Dick, and Harry to
No, but you
create
talked
whatever they
about
want.
global warming. You talked about sustainability. You talked about bank scams, and you talked about a lot of those things. What does that has to do with Bitcoin? And what does that has to do with the fiat currency?
I think his point is that resources would be scarce artificially. People won't be able to access them, and that's how we will get our
But
carbon
then we are
emission
talking about
to.
socialism here.
Yeah, that's and
There's no
also the thing
socialism
is
So
that
here.
the
It
aim
will
has
be
failed world over.
responsible way of funding. There is a responsible way of funding. Don't want to give away your sound money like gold too easily to fund projects which are going to destroy the planet. There is a limited amount of that kind of currency. Now, 21 million is a limited amount that you don't want to give away to anybody
And who
just like that
decides that?
until they figure
And
it
who decides that?
out. The
This is
guys who are holding Bitcoin know that the real value of what they're holding. Definitely.
so they decided who gets what.
So who else decides? I mean, I would say, why not? How did we even get into a government thing when the if you say there were landlords before, there were people who were holding gold before, they became entrepreneurs. When the government formed, it was not the government just like that. Even in 150 years ago, when
so.
currency
I
came
think
into,
your point is the entrepreneurs should be left to
yes,
rule the countries, right?
yes, the trade and the
Do you
entrepreneurs
know
runs the
that
nation.
how do
That's what creates the growth of economy, right? The
so
entrepreneurs.
these industrialists became so big a lot by cheating and all, and a lot of black histories behind Facebook stealing ideas and Twitter spreading hate speech, promoting hate content just for their own benefits, and you are trusting them to control the government, and you're trying and these and you're thinking that about their own interest and about their national interest, they will think about the world interest and do the right thing. That's pretty far-fetched.
What each of these companies, Facebook tried to create Deem or Libra for that matter. They didn't take up Bitcoin at all. So each of them who are high time preference, they want to own a currency of their own. So they're not. That's why there is this very slight way of if you see how Bitcoin is actually moving and becoming it has principles behind it, man. That's what I'm saying. It is not going away. Now the Deem has been given away by the Facebook, and they lost 230 billion on the market right now a couple of days ago. So if you see where if a single person is trying to become rich, that also will not be accepted. So basically, it's a there is a lot of principles behind it. So maybe I cannot explain here right away.
No, but
Uh,
then I have another
so
problem now. Now with this Facebook and DM and Lira that you're talking about, that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. Lira was a stable coin. There are already tons of stable coin in the market. It just didn't have a demand. They were too late to the party. It's a totally different argument or a discussion with Lira. It has nothing to do with Facebook was trying to take over the Bitcoin and then look, they failed. I mean, that's not what happened there.
no, they didn't take over Bitcoin. I'm saying he wanted to create his own currency and try to capture the internet. Internet money. There is this. There's a natural war going on. Who wants to be the internet money?
Right,
Basically, that's
right.
all it is.
And
That's
he
all
was
it is.
redundant. Yeah, the idea was redundant. Mark Zuckerberg's idea was redundant, so rightfully it went down the drain, right? Because there's definitely no need of any more stable coins. You got USDC, you got TUSD, you got BUSD, you got USDT, and God knows what DAI, and there's a whole bunch of others. Like, who needs another dime or lira that's going to be pegged to US dollar, and why
That's
becomes the
right. That's
question.
right. Nobody needs a stable coin. There are already nations holding the stable coins.
Yeah, so
We
that's
don't
why it
need
went down, but
USD.
that's nothing to do with the Bitcoin. Like, that's
I
just
was
a
ans-
totally different.
I was trying to answer Nilesh's question where he's saying we are giving away into the hands of Facebook was going to
No, you
take
said
away
that
the
you
same.
want these entrepreneurs to rule the world, right? You accepted that. So I was saying they don't have a good image, although people in India see them like gods and all these AliExpress and Jack Ma and all, but they work for themselves. Nobody work for you, and this is not a democracy country. This is not democracy. I never elected these tech companies, giant owners, to rule my nation or something. So I don't feel fine to give away all the money to them, and I don't feel that they would make the right decision for me. So, like you are saying that they are holding all the coins and they will distribute it very.
There will still be democracy. There will still be democracy. They should also compete. They should also get the opportunities. That's what I'm saying. It will create a sustainable balance here. Maybe we'll go sensibly. We'll take the economy forward. That's all I'm saying. It's not like give away the entirely to them. Sensible way of moving. Running the democracies and economy. That's all,
It's a
right?
big experiment. It's a big experiment. So
Yeah.
and I don't know, like, I think that big experiment can be just taken on
Yeah,
its
we
own.
we
Like, I
have
think
easily
if bit,
given into the hands of fiat experiment for 100 years, sir. That's what
I
I'm
don't know
saying.
about that.
We
I
see
think we
where
had
we
fared.
stand
I
now,
think we
right
fared
now.
really well as a globe, as a.
We failed miserably with fiat experiment.
Well,
So
no,
that's how,
we
we
have
have to
fared.
go to better,
It depends. It
better
depends
options.
whether you're looking at glass half full or half empty situation here. I mean, I think world has done great. You look at the amount of value that has been created. Look at last 100 years. People used to be on the streets, kind of chopping each other's heads off. And look at the world we are here. 100 years we've come this far. So I don't know what you're talking
It
about when
comes
you
with
say
huge
we've
price,
sort of.
right, Neo? It's not that everything is pink roses right now. It has created its own kind of problems also.
Yeah, but
The kind
then,
of abuses
but
that
then
we
it's
bring to the
not.
planet.
But then it's not going to be like Bitcoin is an answer for everything. I mean, those problems are different, and obviously, nothing's perfect, right? So, we've taken big steps forward, and yes, we have created some problems as part of it. You've got global warming, and we have incorrect distribution of wealth. I think we've skewed from one socialist side extreme to becoming like really, really capitalistic, at least in the western part, where I am. And I think it comes with its own set of challenges and problems, right, that have to be dealt with. But that all that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, like nowhere
Neo,
close.
maybe I couldn't give you the entire picture. Maybe I cannot just cannot give you all the details over just by speaking to you. Maybe we have to read some literature here. I just referred a couple few of them. There's a
Oh,
lot to explore.
I
Even I
read
have
a
to do a
lot,
lot.
and I've done a lot of extensive programming. I saw Lehman Brothers lights turn off on the 18th of September, if it was 2008, right in front of me. I'm walking past Times Square, the lights are on. I come back in the evening, lights are off. So I've been through all of that stuff. When the Bitcoin's first white paper came out, I read it. I've mined bitcoins, I've sold bitcoins, I've bought bitcoins. Like I've dealt, so I know Bitcoin right from the day it came out. I'm in New York back then.
Okay,
So
Nia, maybe we have to read
so
the literature which has come recently, like by this guy called Saifuddin Amos, is Bitcoin Standard and Fiat Standard. Maybe that will give you a good perspective. There's quite a few books called Layered Money by Nick Bhatia. There are Sovereign Individual by some other guy. There's quite a lot of literatures which will interlink. That will connect the dots. What I'm saying here,
yeah,
it
but it's a
cannot be just one.
perspective, right? At the end of the day, it's a perspective. When you're
So
reading a book, it's a perspective of somebody trying to convey to you a certain message. So
everyone here has read some literature to be where we are right now
exactly,
today. We got our degrees like that. We got
yeah.
our, come on.
You're right. You're right.
Yes,
You're
yes.
absolutely right. And that's what I'm saying. That a lot of those books, and you look at Sailor, the guy's like a Schiller, in my view. He holds one of the biggest, stake in the Bitcoin, and he's just shilling. I mean, I never seen him argue with a PhD level economist any argument. He's arguing with people who don't know anything about economics. So, like, it's like really funny, like watching him. So, look, I'm
And
all open,
that's right,
and I
Neo.
think
The nations are being run by people who don't understand economics properly, who don't really want to create sustainable practices. I won't say, it's not wrong to say everyone is shilling here. Everyone is a marketer on the planet, actually, if you see. So we cannot just put a dark side or a gray, image on somebody saying he's shilling this or shilling that. But yeah, if there is a truth to that, maybe, you will tilt to that side. That's all it is. Everyone has their own perspective. But if there is more truth to something, that's where the world will move. That's all it is.
I want to say one thing to Sundar, like the whole debate about the environment and being sustainable and all everything. There is this thing that when the dinosaurs were alive, the carbon level were twice as much as it is today, even after all the industries are running and having all these things, and the earth was flourishing, and the animals were double of the size, and the plants there has been experiments when the carbon level rises, the absorptions also rises equally in the plants, and they basically flourish. And we all are carbon based entities here. We if we burn ourselves, we'll find out we become carbon. So all life forms are carbon based life forms. So this argument, and that's why Trump pulled off the Paris Treaty of the environment, because it was like, we don't know, people were saying that ozone is getting a hole in it, and then it all automatically recovered, and then people said that the sea levels are rising, but they never rose. So this thing is working a lot of on expectations, speculations, and it is not actually backed by any science. It is just assumptions that we are moving in that way, and the carbon emissions is not uh, has not result in the things that were claimed to be. So
Nilesh,
I don't know. Yeah.
what? Why do you see, the Delhi government decided to run odd or even kind of cars on a basis, and why does Delhi go through all this pollution things?
There
You
is a
said there's
lot
even
of
backing to that.
gases. The
So,
monoxide is the dangerous one, and
yes,
like,
then
yeah.
you understand there is a scientific reasons when we say some things are there and being abused, and we have seen a lot of deforestations happen. We destroyed a lot of forests across the planet. There is scientific backing actually, Nilesh. We are seeing very low time frame here. The Earth was born 4 billion years
That's
ago,
my exact
and we are
point.
destroying something in less than few hundred years. Okay, we are destroying that which was flourishing for billion years. What is this? Is basically if we are imbalancing the food chain, so maybe that we are going to kill humanity over a long run, slowly but painfully, or the planet or the nature would take that on. But yeah, eventually that's not the way we want to run in a country, or kill the species on the planet, right? Definitely, if humans go away, a lot of other creatures will flourish anyway. Other
Hmm.
plants and trees will flourish anyway. So
Yeah.
it's we have to be worried actually. All other species will survive if we are not.
Yeah, but there is no black and white, good or bad in one environment. That's my point is.
That doesn't mean we go on and indiscriminately abuse the resources on the planet.
We are not look, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of things has been thrown just because to keep us back, because all these countries, western countries, made a lot of things, their buildings and the infrastructure and everything, and when our time came, they are saying, yo, think about the environment, don't do this, don't do that, don't make factories, and we will put carbon tax on you and this and that. We have to understand that this is a whole strategy going on. And because a nation, when it's want to come out of poverty and all, it has to do a lot of emission and these all things, and these all things are not as bad as they're made to be. And the world is a good place. It's just a perspective. People are very happy. The health span is moving up. There's much better infrastructure, road, healthcare, everything is much better. So I don't think we did bad in the terms of quality of this world. But that's my perspective. Maybe that's not that much of yours, maybe, but
There are a lot of
yeah.
perspectives, Nilesh. Even if you look from how the nations are dealing with each other, if you look macro perspectives, they know the bigger picture here. Maybe we can see from individual levels, but if you really read macroeconomics, that's where the real picture of what's happening in the world comes into place. And why did the countries decide, or this even kind of pandemic was created in the first place? I don't know. I mean, there is a conspiracy there too, and suddenly spread across the planet, and we are to shut down all the economic activities. There is some conspiracy theories behind these two. So it depends on what you're seeing. It's like somebody who can see the whole elephant or not. If you see one part of it, you will think about. You will get one perspective. If there's a picture of that somewhere I saw. A person is holding the leg and he thinks that's the entire elephant, something like that. So it's huge. The perspectives are huge. So maybe I may not have all the answers. Maybe if you can listen to Michael Saylor's videos, he'll give very clear picture, crystal clear picture. Maybe he has more knowledge. Maybe that would be a great starting point for you guys to find what how we see from the guy who has been who understand that. Guys, I think it's quite late here. I would like to drop off. It was very nice with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Probably
man, sure.
it's
Take care.
11:30. And Neo, and it was great talking to you. Great discussion, guys. Samvid, I think thanks for giving this opportunity. I think I took away a lot of time. I hope it was valuable. Good night, guys.
Thank you, Sundar, for your discussion.
Yeah, so I was hearing till now I was hearing. I had my dinner and I came back. It's like 11:30 p.m. in India, but Neo Cryptic and Sundar had an amazing discussion, and also I think Nilesh participated a lot. I mean, it is always I mean, yeah, I could get the point. I mean, Bitcoin versus alts and everything. It spanned across each and every topic was like covered from it.
Yeah, Samit, you there?
You were listening to the CryptoHub India podcast. Do follow us wherever you are listening so that you get notified about the latest episodes as soon as they're out. We are active on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Telegram, and Clubhouse. Visit cryptohubindia.com to get all our social links. This is Nirmal Sarkar signing off. Thank you.